Good morning, my friends, good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening. It is wonderful to see you this spontaneous Saturday morning for an exciting session about portrait lighting in Unreal Engine. CS is here, the photarist is here, which to my mind, it looks like the photo artist, but it's nice to drop some letters and more godforsaken shenanigans today. Exactly right. And anyone else who's out there watching, welcome. It's wonderful to see you. I've actually done something like this on Twitch, I believe earlier this week. Brian was there. You'll remember, and things went all swimmingly well until there was a problem that neither of us could figure out, which was kind of interesting. So we put the character into position and rendered out the image, and then for some reason the character was moving, and it didn't really make any sense at all. And it turns out that when we put another camera from the top of the scene in, it looked like the character was literally, when the scene began, when the rendering began, the character was being pushed into a random direction, and that was just weird, and it was interesting. And I think I figured out what the problem was. So I thought, well, how am I going to edit these things together and you know, get a bit of practice in at the same time? So I realized actually the easiest thing to do that was just do the whole thing again, and you know, that's what we're doing today. So let's put some funky music on and see what Unreal Engine has in stock. The first item, the first order of business, of course, is that we need to think about what character we want to use for this project. So ideally we would use a DAS character, of course, but that isn't currently possible. So I've tried the DAS to Unreal Engine bridge many times, and it works for unmorphed characters. But if you have, and with the current release version at least, if you have something like morphed character, like a custom character in a pose and all that, the moment it arrives, he or she arrives in Unreal Engine, there's like eyes popping out and it's like all terrible. So some work to be done there, but I'm sure the team are working on it. So there we go. These are our choices. I thought if we're going to use Unreal Engine, let's use a native character that EPIC have already prepared for us. And I'm thinking let's use one of the Paragon characters. I've given you a little choice with the YouTube poll up there, which currently is, those are just, you know, ideas. We can use a different character. I don't really mind. But it looks like Sparrow is currently voted up for 20%, Lieutenant Belika 40%, and a head-to-head with Boris also at 40%. I'm going to have a look at these guys here. So any of these guys will work. If you type in Paragon in the search field there on the Unreal Engine Marketplace, and you get this choice here, and they're all going to work because they all look fairly pretty, and they have lots of animations that come with them. So I thought, you know, this is kind of cool. For my Twitch session the other day, I used someone named FaZe. I think she's on the second page. This here is Lieutenant Belika. I'm gonna go and break her out. Then we have Boris, that's this guy here, like this guy. Then there is Sparrow. Where's Sparrow? Sparrow, not on this page. Maybe next page. Oh, there she is. Sparrow, yes. And then who else do we have? Twin Blast. He was kind of cute as well. Twin Blast. There's also, you know, things with teeth and everything, and there's like ancient Chinese man. Twin Blast, there he is. Many of them wear so much armor that it's really difficult to actually see the character. So let's have a look at Lieutenant Belika. This is, you know, hot chick in a military suit. It's always nice, with several outfits. So this is her. That's Lieutenant Belika. Vote for her if you'd like to see her. These are all outfits we can use once we've done the pose and everything. It's just a matter of changing that out. And that she is here. She is in action. Then we have Boris. Boris only comes in a single outfit here, but he has, you know, he has fluffy things, so I thought that's kind of cool. These are all characters that have been developed for a game that EPIC wanted to release at one point, which was called Paragon. And the game never made it because it was competing at the time when they developed it with Fortnite, and you can see that many of the features that it looks like they wanted to implement have now made it into Fortnite, but not the characters. So they decided they're going to give them all for free, away for free, so that we can use them in our own projects, which is kind of cool. Here's Sparrow. She's like, you know, Lady of the Earth and everything, with the bow and arrow. Also has like cloth and everything. So nice variety here. Let me know if you'd like to see her. This is Sparrow. Very nice. Lots of different outfits here. So that's partly why I picked these characters, because they have lots and lots of outfits there. And then the final guy here is Twin Blast. He's a guy, he's like, you know, action kind of superhero here. Look at his cloth, look at his trench coat here with the bullet holes and everything. That's very good. So lots and lots of fun, lots of variety. And once we've set up one character and the lighting setup, we can probably just put another character into the scene. That should theoretically be possible. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a complicated process and there's a lot of hoops that we need to jump through. Twin Blast, here he is, very good. He has 0 votes currently. I don't think anyone wants to see him. Currently, Lieutenant Belika in the clear lead, so maybe we're going to use her. But before we make a final decision, I think we can just go and start with the project here. Let me go and put my little, what's it called here, the pointer focus on so that you can follow my cursor. This is going to take at least 2 hours and I'm going to take some time explaining what's going on. Good morning, Mr. Nate. How's it going? Good to see you. Obviously, you can't have enough armor if you are in constant danger of being killed and all that. Oh yeah, actually, before we start, let me go show you some of the things that I've made earlier. Not earlier today, but earlier in like last week or so. This is Aurora. This is a character. This is also a Paragon character that I've rendered here in various outfits. So I was still practicing at the time, but you can see the potential that this has. It's kind of cool to see these things come out of Unreal Engine in more or less in real time. So literally the rendering process takes literally seconds. Yeah, this is Aurora. We can use her as well. Also quite nice. The background was done in Photoshop, so what we're hopefully ending up with is being able to render a character like that with lighting coming from 3 or 4 sides, depending on what we feel like, so that there's a bit of separation here as well as here. And then we're going to replace the background in Photoshop. Like this, these are all Photoshop replacements. Even though you can do a lot of that in Unreal Engine, it is kind of nice to have that possibility, so have a proper transparent character. And this is the one that I've made for the promo image. This was the lady we had a look at on Twitch. If you want to see what went off the rails and when that happened, it's kind of a fun session. I spent some time yesterday editing this together, but then I realized actually there's really no good way to get out. So either you present the 3-hour thing in which there's outtakes and things going off the rails, which is an interesting thing to watch, but it's also not so much something you probably want to have as a reference. So let's hope this doesn't happen today. I'm very good, thank you so much, Nate. I ordered those headphones yesterday, so very cool. I'm going to go and start with a brand new project here. It'll be a blank project, and I'm going to call it ray tracing. We don't have to enable. We don't need any starter content. I'm going to call this one. I'm just going to call it portrait. Portrait stream, maybe. How's that? So that I remember 1 week from now what we actually did. Hey Neville, how's it going? Thank you, Brian. Yes, I thought so too. Yes, face turned out really good. And I've worked around the issue that the character moves, and there's actually a fairly simple trick. Like often if something doesn't go at all the way you'd expect it, then it's usually because you're not doing something right. And there's really something that I totally forgot. So I'll tell you all about it today. Sequence is currently empty. This is our project right now, so there's really nothing in here, which is nice. Not even this level is saved, so we literally have nothing in our content browser. So the way Unreal Engine works is when you open a blank project, it comes up with this level, but it kind of creates it from memory. It hasn't saved this yet, so in order for us to actually make sure this level is saved, so that all the changes that we make here in the level, and so that the level loads when we open the project, the first thing we need to do is in fact save the level. So save current, I believe, save current as, and we're going to call this, and new map is a good point. We can also call it something maybe like portrait lighting 1, because maybe we'll make a couple more of those. So let's call it that, and now it's actually saved this level here. So in the level, there's certain things that we don't need. This is kind of the default lighting here that EPIC give us with any level, but it contains a sky and all that. We don't really want to use that. We want to create our own lighting from scratch. So what we're going to remove here is the atmospheric fog. The floor can remain, that's cool. The light source here, that's kind of a directional sunlight. We're going to remove that as well. Yes, absolutely. And then we're going to remove the player start, because we're not actually going to play this level. We're going to treat it very much like Dash Studio and Unreal Engine and a Blender scene as such. Also the sky sphere, totally gonna get rid of that, and the sky light, that's also gonna be removed. So we're only gonna keep the reflection capture And that's just so that anyone who has metallic bits and pieces on their outfit, they can, they can be seen. So in an ideal world now, since I've removed everything, even with the reflection capture, if I make that invisible, I still see that there's some light going on in the scene. And this is a little bit like how DAZ Studio works, in that there is a base HDRI in the scene, and we need to be able to control it to set our own lights, because otherwise things will be kind of flattened, blurred out, and otherwise our own lights are just going to add to this, but we need to be able to kind of subtract from that first of all. And that happens with something called a post-process volume. It actually happens in two places. So the post-process volume is going to affect whatever we see in the viewport, and those changes we need to also make in our camera that we're going to set up. So let's go and set that up. So the post-process volume, I'll just go and drag that in. It's like a box here. And in order for it to be, it doesn't really matter exactly where it is, but I, like one of those belt and braces kind of guys, I'd like for this to be in the middle of the scene. So I'm going to go over here to the location. I'm going to set this to 0, 0, and maybe the Z, that's the up and down in Unreal Engine. We'll set that to, like, I don't know, 500, for example. And then at least it's kind of in the center column here. But it's only currently going to affect this little box radius here, so it's not exactly encompassing anything and everything that we have in our scene, albeit our scene is small, but it needs to be a little bit larger. So I can either scale that up so that this cube is in the whole center of the scene, or I can search for this property on the post-process volume, which is called, what was it called? It's something like, make it infinite. I think it's, if I just search for extent, then I can find infinite extent unbound. So if I go and select that, then it is no longer confined to its little cube space here. It'll just be, it'll be in the scene for good, essentially. Like, work on everything that's in the scene, if I remember correctly. On the post-process volume, there's a couple of things that we need to set to affect our lighting. That's under the exposure channel. And currently nothing is active, which means it is kind of working automatically. So if I go and enable this one in metering mode, if I enable that and then switch it from auto exposure histogram to manual, I can see that now my scene goes completely black, or more or less black. If I don't know how well you can see this in the stream, but if I go and look at the floor, I can just about see that here as an outline. So it is still showing me a little bit, and that is because if I switch over to exposure compensation now, I can type in a value, and then that'll basically give me control over how much exposure compensation is happening there. So I think I'm going to set this to maybe 8, no, maybe 12. 12 is probably a good point here. 12 is good because it almost looks like the previous scene. So 10 will also work. 10 is probably a little bit better, but it's a little dim, so I'll leave it on 12 for now, just so that we have a bit of that we can see what's going on here. But this isn't going to now react to any other light that will come in. It won't automatically adjust up or down, so that's kind of important. So there we go. With all this, I think let's go and save our scene. Save all. There we go. And also make sure that this level gets loaded when I load Unreal Engine. That's one of those things. If we don't do that, a new default level comes back and not our level. And then we have to load it manually. So we head over to Project Settings, and then over in Maps and Modes, let's go and change this here, the Editor Default Startup Map, from default, template default, to our thing, Portrait Lighting 1. And game default, we don't really need to set this, but I'll set this anyway. This is what happens when the game would start playing, and this is what happens when the editor loads up. So let's go and do this. And that's basically almost everything. We need to restart Unreal Engine twice because we need to jump through a few hoops here. So the first thing that I'd like to do is add a plugin called the Movie Render Queue. That's EPIC's new way of letting us render out high-res images and animations. It is working with a built-in version, but they're in the process of replacing that. So let's head over to Edit and Plugins and search for the Movie Render Queue. That's this one here. Currently it's not enabled by default. I have a feeling that's probably going to change at one point. And like when you enable a plugin in Unreal Engine, you have to go and restart the editor. It's just what we need to do. There's a second setting I'd like to set up at the beginning, and that is to prepare my project to be able to render with transparency. And by default that is disabled, and we want to enable it so that we can add a background to our portrait in Photoshop later. And for that, Unreal Engine has to recompile some shaders here. And that is also, in fact, under Edit Project Settings. And sadly, I've forgotten again what we need to look for here. I think if we search for alpha, it'll come up. Maybe, yes, post-processing there under Engine Rendering. Enable alpha channel support in post-processing, and it also says that it's experimental. One of those things. So we have to, it's disabled by default. We need to set it to allow through tone mapper. And when we do that, Unreal Engine will come up with another message that says restart required to apply the new settings. If you already had a project with several shaders in your project, the moment Unreal Engine restarts, it'll have to go and recompile them all, and that'll take quite a while. So I like doing this at the beginning of a project, and I kept forgetting previously, so one of those things. So hopefully, since we don't have many shaders here, Unreal Engine shouldn't really have that much of a problem. And that's our project prepared to receive now one of the characters that we'd like to see. So you have all voted with an overwhelming majority. Basically everyone got a vote, which is kind of nice. Good for you, Twin Blast. So we're going to probably use Sparrow. That is who won the poll with 36%. Lieutenant Belika and Boris were kind of a good tie there, 27%. And Twin Blast only had 9%. Oh, poor Twin Blast. No worries. Final votes are in. That's it. End poll. I've already forgotten. Which one did we say now? Sparrow, right? Dang, brother. That's cold. Sparrow, where are you? This is Decker. She would have also been a possibility. I tried Phase last time, and Aurora. Severok, he's also very, very cool. She is Shinbi. Where's Sparrow? Sparrow's on the previous page, wasn't she? Sparrow, Yin, Terra, Greystone. So many characters. Sparrow, there she is. So the way for me to be able to use this character, I haven't bought her yet. I mean, they're all available for free, but in order to get her into the library, you need to check them out. So in my case, I need to add Sparrow to my cart, and then with the cart, I need to go and check out. Thankfully, she doesn't cost me anything, so that's I'm okay with that. Hey, Miss Julia. Hey, Miss Camilla. How are you doing? Very good to see you. And once she's checked out, I can go into my library, and then with this, so these are my previous projects here. If I go and scroll down, I have my vault. These are all the items that I own, and in it I can either create a new project with these, or I can add them to a project. Kind of depends on how the products are set up. Add to project is nice because you can add these things to your own project. Create a project means you create basically a custom project with this product that you bought, and then you can migrate the assets from one project to another. It's, you know, one of those things. In our case, we just look for Paragon, and that'll give me all the Paragon characters, including Sparrow. So I can now go and add her to my project. So if I go and click that, I can now go and pick the project that we're going to use, and that is the one that's currently running, which is Portrait Stream. There we go. So I'll select that and say add to project. And at this point, all the assets are being downloaded and then copied into my project. Oh, look at that, 3 gigabytes. My God, that is a lot. But we let it run while we hopefully do some bits and pieces, some other things here. So it'll show up here as a folder, and then we can use that as our game character. So yeah, while that's doodling, let's go and talk about the camera we're going to set up. So that's a bit like in DAZ Studio, in which we drag a camera in, or we can go and frame something up from the viewport and then go and create a camera from there. I'll just show you quickly how the 2 options that we have. Camera going in here, that's under Cinematic. We have 2 cameras. We have the Cine camera actor. This is the one that we're going to use. But there's also, if you just search for camera, you can see that there's a relatively a simple camera here as well. So Unreal Engine has both. But the one that we want to use is the Cine camera actor, because it has things like depth of field, and we can do all kinds of other exciting things with it. Camera is a very simple object. And a Cine camera actor is a child of that with more options. So we can either go look for it here and then go left click and drag it into the scene. And then there it is. With F we can go and see that camera. And the moment we click it, we've got this little preview window here. We can move it up and down, and then we can see what the camera sees through this here. Or the other option is, if I've framed up my perfect shot in the scene like this, then I can head over here to this little arrow and then say create camera here. Camera actor or Cine camera actor, either one will work. And then we can see that the camera is essentially in our position. So this is what you do in DAZ Studio when you frame up your viewport and you say create new camera, copy viewport transforms. That's it. So with it, we're not piloting it, so we can just still run around with it. And that's the camera. If we want to see the full screen view, that's also very much like in DAZ Studio. It's like you switch this perspective view over to your camera actor, and then you look through the camera and it says you're piloting the camera now. So this will undo that, either eject or you switch back to something like the perspective view. So I'll go and keep it here. And then when I go and move around, this is now basically moving my camera. Well, whatever I want to do with the camera, I can do and manually frame that up if I want to do that. Piloting is one of those concepts you can also get there in a different way. You can go and right click your camera actor and then say pilot. That's also possible. I think I'm going to go and rename my camera with F2. I'm going to call it main cam, just so that I remember what that is. There we go. And where is it? There it is. Perfect. So we'll see how we want to frame up our character. These things here, they're snapping things. I'm going to go switch those off so that I have a smooth way of rotating these things with the manipulator. If they're on, then these things snap at a particular angle, and then I can only move my camera in like 5-degree increments, which for camera positioning I might not want to do. So I'm going to go switch that off. That's our camera. Now let's bring in our character. I think she has loaded now, hasn't she? Yes, perfect. So Sparrow is now in our character, in our project. There she is. Comes with a lot of folders. I think we need characters, and then there should be heroes, and then there's Sparrow, and then in Sparrow we have this one here, the Sparrow player character. There's also the animation blueprint, and there's a test animation map and all that. I'm going to use her, Sparrow player character, left click and drag her into the project. Takes a little hesitation because I was going to say DAZ Studio. Unreal Engine is going to compile some shaders now, start compiling some shaders. So it takes a little bit of time. Hey Popeye, how's it going? Oh, is it? I've never tried. How exciting. They do Octane for Unreal Engine, do they? How exciting. I never knew. So it looks like it's unresponsive, but it's like 3 gigabytes worth of character that's now being dragged into our scene. So we're gonna have to make some concessions here. Aha, there she is. Somebody is at the ready. I'm gonna go and put her into the center of my viewport here, just with the location settings, so with the Sparrow player character selected. I'm gonna put that to 0 and to 0, and the Z is the height. I'm gonna leave that as it is, and we can see now that she's facing away from from us, and that's just because I suppose she is facing the wrong way. I think this is actually forward here. So our camera needs to be kind of in the position that this camera is, but this is the third person follow camera that's attached to the player character, and we don't really want to mess with that. We don't want it full stop. So I'm going to go and take my camera here, and go and put it. Oops. I'm going to go put it over there. We're going to talk more about how we can automatically line up the camera to the character a little later on. I'm just going to go position that kind of here so that I'll be able to frame her up in a second. Okay, it looks like our character has loaded, which is nice. Let's have a closer look at her. Closer look, I said. Are you decent, girl? Wearing underwear? I hope so. So she's facing the wrong way, and that's just because the follow camera is supposed to be behind her. So I'm going to go turn her around with the Z rotation by 180. And then I'm going to go and edit her blueprint. So by just double clicking on her, or saying edit blueprint. open blueprint editor, any of these things will work. And all I want to do here is I want to remove that camera from her viewport here, because we don't really need that. We can already see that she's in a very nice position. That's great. I've never seen this character before, so we'll see how we can affect that. Yeah, so in order for her to not use the animation blueprint that is attached to her, like if we go over from play to simulate, and if we go and do that, then she goes and does this. So she does her kind of starting animation, and that's done with this animation blueprint. So she's now ready to be controlled with the game controller, with the mouse and keyboard. And of course, we don't really want that. We want her to be in a static position that we can predict. So she's got this idle thing going here, but in order for that to change, we'll go and switch this over from animation mode blueprint to animation asset. Later on, we're going to set this to custom mode, but that's the next step. So animation blueprint, then this means now she's kind of, she's just statically standing in her A pose, but that's because we need to go and pick an animation over here, anim to play, and there's a lot of them that come with all these projects, which is really cool. I'm going to try to use an idle one. There's usually an idle animation sequence. Let's try that. See what happens now. Now that's perfect. So she's there with a bow and arrow. That's actually a very nice idle animation. Very good. So if we go and hit play now, then we'll see that that's what she looks like. There's a ton of other animations, so we're gonna go and see if we can pick something else. But this might make a nice portrait if we frame it up properly, either from the side or something. We'll see. We'll see. For now, she's just going to stand there, and we're going to go and light her up so that we have the lighting in place. I like it. Might also go and save my project. I like doing that every so often, since people do remind me of that. Yes, Unreal Engine is completely free. So are the characters that I'm using, which is really nice. I can go and close this down here. Movie render queue we're going to need in a moment. So lights, they come out of this lights box here on the right, and you can just drag them in. There's basically the usual suspects: directional light, the one that we don't want to use. Then there's the point light, the spotlight, there's a rectangle light, and there's a skylight. So I'm gonna try a mixture between the spotlight and the rectangle light. I'll show you how both of them work, and then how we can auto line them up so that we have a bit of a constraint there, that they'll point to the character no matter if we move the character or the light itself. And I am alive. Yes, thank you, Popeye. I'm always glad to be alive. Let's start with our good friend, the spotlight. I can go and put that in, and we can see the sharp light cone at the bottom here. We can also see that message at the top here that says lighting needs to be rebuilt. And this is kind of Unreal Engine's resource-saving way of creating lighting. Whenever you change a static light like this one, it wants us to rebuild the shadow maps. Thankfully, we don't have to do that, because Unreal Engine is capable of doing this on the fly and work without shadow maps by using, instead of static lights or stationary lights, we can use movable objects. So with our light source selected, if I click this thing here, movable, then it'll go, well, from stationary to movable. And the moment I do that, this message goes away. So this costs a little bit more computing power, but we're okay with that because we're not building a game. We're all right with that. So then we can go ahead and rotate this and point it at our character and all that. So that's possible. But of course, the problem is that when we point it at a character and then we move the light away, I have to go and manually go and navigate it so that it keeps pointing at the character. And one of the things that I enjoy about both Blender and DAZ Studio is that I can set up a light pointed at either the character or something like a tracking point, and then just move them around until I have the perfect position. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. So spotlight is just like we know it. It's harsh. Its lighting quality is harsh. I might go and make the post-process volume under exposure. I'm going to dim that down a little bit from 12 to 10. So this is going to make the default HDRI a little bit dimmer, but it'll also mean that our lights are now going to be able to show up a bit better. So you can do things like, play with the intensity. That's here all under the light properties down here. You can set the light color, and you can also set the light quality here. So there's something like inner cone angle, outer cone angle, source radius, soft source radius. So these are kind of cool on spotlights. If I use the source radius, that will emulate light that is a bit that is more, come on, trackball navigation isn't the best. So if I go and look at this, the light is very harsh on her face here. Hello? There. Light is very harsh on her face. If I wanted to make that a bit softer to soften up the shadows, that's with the source radius, I believe. If I go and crank that up, then you can see that the shadow on her arm is a lot softer now. This is that property, her source radius, that I'm playing with. And so that's kind of nice to get a softer spotlight effect. And there's also this soft source radius. That's also something we can play with. That emulates, I believe, is that correct? How far the light source is away. Or was that not that? Was that the soft radius? I can't remember. I think the one with the most influence is actually the soft radius. But thankfully there's another light that we can use for such effects, and that's the rectangle light. There's also, so the other thing here, that's the outer cone angle, that's this one here. If I go and mess with that, the cone, the spread angle essentially gets bigger or smaller. So that's also something that we can set. But, you know, more on that later. Let's have a look at the rectangle light. Same thing here, rectangle light, drag it in. Lighting needs to be rebuilt, that's okay. We're going to set that to movable, and then we can go and move that around. And that's now basically your mesh light that we know and love from DAZ Studio, the one that we create a plane from, and then we just go all like a ghost light, like some people call it, and that sets a much nicer light quality here. So we have something much softer now, without having to mess with things. So this is a very nice light quality. If you're after soft shadows, then you know the rectangle light is for you. And if you're after more harsher shadows with a little bit of control, you can use the spotlight as kind of as usual, which is kind of nice. So what the beauty of this is that once you've understood these principles and which light needs to go where, it's actually very easy to translate that to other render engines, including Blender and even Unreal Engine. So yeah, very soft light, and we have that. If we have that from multiple angles, where you know we can make our subject look okay. Well, Camilla, it is kind of underway. Also, S3B Master, very welcome to the stream. There is a bridge that lets you export things from DAZ to Unreal Engine, and it's been around for a while. It kind of works more for bringing characters over, like base characters over, that you can then go and hook up to the EPIC skeleton and then run around with them in a world. So that works. It also works with environments, that you can bring environments over. But I found that with custom characters, it has a problem. So there's like, you know, eyeballs popping out and the poses are not correct. But you know, David is doing a good job. David and the team at DAZ, so they're improving it all the time, which is kind of cool. So yes, watch this space. That it should at one point be possible to do that very seamlessly. That's the point. Hey, Mr. Chris, how's it going? How you doing? What's the weather like in New York? So one thing that, as I said before, if we go and move the light or the character, it doesn't go and track the person right now. And sadly, Unreal Engine doesn't have this built into light objects at the moment. It does have this tracking ability built into cameras, and specifically into Cine cameras. And in order to make use of that, we can just use a Cine camera, point that at the character, and then parent a light to the camera, just so that we have that tracking effect. And that is actually quite exciting how that works. Let me go and show you. I'll go and delete the rectangle light, only to bring it back in a minute. Why, I don't understand. There's another rectangle light. I've accidentally copied that. Let me go and make my character invisible, bring in a new cinematic camera, Cine camera actor. I'll just drag that in, and then I'm going to go and put it into the dead center. 0, 0, and maybe 100. So that just, you know, floats above the floor. And I'm doing this so that it's a predictable position. Because if I now go and say, let me go and bring in my rectangle light again, literally just left click and drag, make it movable again. I'm going to put that light into the same position as the camera. So I'll go and say location 0, 0, and 100. And then I can see that once I've done that, they are in fact in the same position here. So this is kind of awesome. I can go and it's like the rectangle light's now shining out of the front of my camera, which is awesome. So I'll go and left click and drag that, the rectangle light, put it onto my Cine camera actor here, which is this, just to make sure. I'm going to call this light cam 1, just so that I remember that I can differentiate it from this and my main camera, which of course are both Cine camera actors. So this is my light camera now, and with that, if I go and move the camera now, the rectangle light moves, which is awesome, because now I can go and, well, just move it kind of away here. This is a sweet trick in Unreal Engine. If you move an object and you have to move it over vast distances, sometimes you have to move it off the scene. Like if I do this now and it needs to still go further away there, then I'd have to go and, you know, reframe this up again and then go and move it further, and it's just, you know, that's a little bit cumbersome if you traverse large distances. So Unreal Engine has this trick in which when you hold shift you can move the camera and it moves the scene with you, which is really cool. I really like that. And then if you want to bring in an object into focus, you can just press F and then it focuses on that object. So I'm going to put my camera over here. I'm going to make my character visible again. Now I can go and point this light directly at the character, no problem, but there's an even better way to use a tracking point for this. So let's do that right away, in fact. So the characters in Unreal Engine, they're a little bit different than the ones in Dash Studio, in which you can go and point at a particular portion of the character. By default, that doesn't really work in Unreal Engine, but there's a thing called the target point. And that is something that's a bit like an empty or null. So it's a node without any, you know, without anything really. It's just a node. And if I go and bring that target point, whoops, I've accidentally copied my character here, didn't want to do that. If I go and bring my target point up to kind of her head height, then I can go and point any of my lights to that, and I can move that target point, and then all the lights will move with it. And that's kind of that's what I'm trying to do here. So target point is in there. We're just going to call it target point. I'll go back to my light camera, and then in there's an option down here called the look at tracking. And if I enable that, I can go and pick an actor to track down here. Currently it's just looking at her feet, but if I go and make a point at the target point, then it looks directly at her face, which is kind of cool. So watch what happens if I now go and mess with my camera. If I go and bring it up, it'll, you know, forgive the stuttering here, but if I go and move it, it always goes and tracks the actor, which is really, really cool. So I can go and move my light now, essentially, not so much the camera. I don't really want to look through the camera, but if I go and do this, then I go and literally see what happens to the light effect of my character. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm going to try and give her a kind of a soft light from over here. Whoops. Kind of from over here. I can also adjust that if I don't want her face to be brightened up. If I wanted that to kind of go down a little bit, there's also a way in the look at tracking to adjust that. So there's the relative offset here. So Z is something that will make that slightly lower, I think. There we go. If I wanted to illuminate more of her body, I can do that. Or if I needed for that to be a little bit further to the left or right, then I can go and adjust that. So that is quite neat. That's the look at tracking. And by using cameras with lights, we basically have best of both worlds. And the behavior is exactly like it is in Dash Studio. Pamela, welcome to the Star Crew. Wonderful to see you. Very good to see you. Oh my, so the move has happened. Well, welcome. Good afternoon to Europe. How exciting. Very cool. Was it Italy in the end? Did you go to Italy? That is very cool. Very good to see you. My goodness. I've moved from Europe over to the US, so it kind of, it evens out. Very funky. Let's do this again, the same look at tracking again with another camera, and this time with the spotlight. So I could just go and copy this camera here, but it'll be troublesome because it's already pointing at something. It's let's go and create a new camera from scratch. Don't need a target point. Cinematic. Let's go and find Cine Camera Actor. And also it's it's about practice. So we go 0, 0, and 100 maybe, and then we go and bring in a light like a spotlight. Same thing. Put that in. Switch it to movable. Same thing. We go and put it to 0, 0, 100. And I think we also need to go and turn it around. If I go and make Sparrow invisible again for a second, then I can see it's pointing down. It should be pointing out of the camera, and we can see that Y rotation is set to -90. So if I go and make that 0, then boom, it shines out of the front of the camera. So this now needs to be copied to my new Cine Camera Actor, which is going to be called Light Cam 2. No spaces allowed. And this one, I was thinking we can use this for the backlight. Then the next thing, look at tracking. Enable look at tracking, and also pick my target point from the list. And then that should take care of that. Whoops, dude. Sometimes it's a little erratic. I can't really tell you why. It's best not to move them in 2 axes. Looks like a little bit of a bug. Usually that's not a problem in Unreal Engine, but oh, see, sometimes this happens. I really don't know why. There. Let's bring Sparrow back and make that her backlight essentially. So one's kind of coming from the front here, the other one's coming. I see. Maybe single axes have the problem. Maybe I need to use both axes. So yeah, they're less erratic. It's maybe kind of coming from here. We'll see what looks good. We might give her another one from this direction here. And I'm trying to set up something along the lines of a 3-point lighting or thereabouts. So first of all, this isn't quite effective enough here. I haven't quite got the correct intensity, so that's on the spotlight. Let's go and maybe make that cone a little sharper, just to illuminate the upper body here. Maybe 20, maybe 30 is good. And then the strength, yeah, something like that, just to begin with. We'll have a better impression of what this light looks like when we actually look through our camera. So let me go and set that up now. That's another big thing. So it's going to be yeah, Cine Camera Actor is going to be interesting to set that up. We're going to use look at tracking for the character as well. But first of all, we see that it's kind of 16:9 and it's got this particular perspective here. So we need to go and set this up that it looks like a proper portrait camera, either square or portrait, don't know yet, but there's some implications that we need to do. So let's take a look at that. Look at tracking. I'll close this down again and have a look at the film back section. That's currently set to digital film 16:9, and there's a few things I can pick here, and they'll all work, but they're all kind of landscape-ish type things. So I'm going to go and pick something custom here that will let me pick a film back size. So the way Unreal Engine works is that when you pick this, it doesn't just pick the aspect ratio implied from these dimensions, it actually picks an actual sensor width and sensor height, and that you can compare that to either the digital sensor in your camera or the piece of film in your camera, and depending on the size of that, it'll determine the aspect ratio, but it'll also have an effect on how the focal length affects what's being put on your film. So if you had a shorter focal length, or if you had a smaller sensor size, then smaller focal lengths will have a different effect than longer focal lengths. So in my case, since I want to use something portrait or maybe even something square, I'm going to go and say, I'm going to say 30 by 30 millimeters. And that'll be a square aspect ratio. I could also go and say sensor width, make that 20 by 30. Then I have a proper 2:3 portrait, which looks neat. So the moment I go and maybe pilot that camera, main cam, there we go. The moment I now go and turn this just on the floor, just so I can see it, it's a proper portrait 2:3 kind of golden-ish aspect ratio there. That's what many DSLRs do. But if I go and put this to 30:30, then I have a square aspect ratio. And I have a feeling it's probably ending up more like a portrait. I might start with the square and then we'll see where we go from that. So on the bottom here now I have my current focal length. I'm piloting the camera so we can see the results here. Focal length 11 millimeters. If I go instead of 30:30, I make that 3:3. Then you see the aspect ratio is still the same, but it looks like I'm zoomed in much more with the same focal length. And so this also has an effect on depth of field and all that, just something to be aware of. So I'd like to stick with the larger ones as if I have a really large sensor set. So I'm going to go back to 30:30 and then go adjust the current focal length. So 11 millimeters doesn't do the same as it did with the small sensor size. I'm going to bring that up to something like portrait, kind of maybe 120, maybe even 200, or maybe 120 is a good, maybe 150. Let's try 150. And what I'm seeing is kind of a blurred out mess, which is a shame. So I need to kind of work on that. Even if I go and frame her up, she's really not in focus, and that's kind of good because it means just by default my Cine camera actor does depth of field, which is exciting. And that is of course also under here. It's not the film back setting now; it's the focus setting. Focus method is manual right now. We can disable this and say just disable, and then when I do that it'll be completely in focus, which is kind of cool. But I do like a little bit of depth of field, but perhaps not right now, so maybe we'll work on that in a moment. In an ideal world I would have to go to manual, and then I can pick an object with the eyedropper tool here, and then I can either pick whichever object, but it sometimes gets it wrong. So Unreal Engine isn't perfect here. It also very much depends on the position of the camera. There's a couple of helper things that we'll talk about. Maybe shall we do this now? Or should we do this later? I can't tell. Yes, if it ever worked properly, which it doesn't. That's the sad conclusion that I have to draw as well. I bought this actually when it was available on the Unreal Engine Marketplace, and then shortly after DAS bought it and released it for free, and the first tests with it were really promising, that you can get a character into Unreal Engine and use it for animations and make it walk around in an environment. That was really cool, but it has massive issues with things like with custom characters. So yeah, it's being worked at, and you know, that's kind of nice. I think there's enough interest in it. You know, I hope it's going to go really well. That at one point we hopefully will be able to say, build your character, pose him or her in DAS Studio, and just one click, go bring it all into Unreal Engine, set up something like this and render it out. That'd be really good. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen as well. So yes, let's deal with depth of field here. Let's deal with depth of field. Let's just frame it up and disable that. Actually, let's disable it for now and frame up the camera properly. Let me go and track my my actor with the look at tracking. There's just so much that you need to do with this with Unreal Engine. It's kind of crazy. I'm gonna go and just track the whole Sparrow character here. Enable look at tracking and pick her here, and then we have something like this. And just like before, this isn't really, you know, the part of the person I want to see. So I'm going to go and mess with the Z adjustment now, so that I can see her upper body, which is cool. So I'm using something like 50 odd something. And now the nice thing is that if I go and eject this and keep this pinned here, if I go and pick my camera and just move it around, left, right, up or down, it'll keep track of this position, which is neat. Except for sometimes it doesn't. I still haven't quite worked that out yet. So the only tip I can give you is, if you use a single axis and your camera behaves totally erratic, like this, which makes no sense, but then many things in Unreal Engine don't make sense, quite frankly, you can just use both axes, and then that erraticness seems to go away. And likewise, if it happens to you with both axes, then just use a single axis. I don't really know why. You can create a game from scratch, yes. It's one of those things, it's possible. If it's worth your while is another matter. Many people think creating a game in Unreal Engine is literally a 2-week job, or maybe done in an afternoon. Whereas the bitter truth, of course, is that it's not quite the case. Whoops. But there are systems that let you do this, and there's many helper assets that you can get from the Unreal Engine marketplace that will support you doing this. I wonder where we're gonna put that light from, because she's got her hand in the way here. So this might look neat already. I might go and especially if we add enough depth of field to blur this out. This is kind of cool. You can also, right, if you don't want to work with the tiny viewport and you don't want to keep switching to the main camera to see this in action, you can also go and pick yourself a different viewport somewhere. Forgot where that is, but it also has this option to layout. So that's it. You can also have a layout that has like 2 viewports side by side. So you can have one for the perspective view in which we run around, and then you have one for the main camera, and then that makes life a little bit easier. On multiple monitors, you can also you can just you can move these things. I think you tear them off and put them on different monitors with this little icon here, I think. So all of these things are possible. It's just with me being a single monitor guy and all that, it's a little tricky. Give myself a little bit more space here. And then this goes over here. We can make it work. We can make it work. So let's see if this works as our framing here. And let's see if we can go and add a little bit of delicious depth of field into the equation. See if that works. So depth of field is a little tricky in Unreal Engine because it fakes it. Like basically every render engine fakes it, but in Unreal Engine it tries to do it as cheap as possible so that it works performant while you're playing a game. And the way it does it, with depth of field would render 3 planes. The first one is your middle plane, that's the focal plane, so that'll be rendered in focus, and it'll just render 2 other cameras or other planes in the front and in the back, and then it blurs them out depending on how high you've set your aperture. That's kind of how it does it, and then it mixes all these things together. So in order to visualize that, there is a thing that lets us do that. But first of all, I'll go and set this up on my camera. So look at tracking. I'm going to be happy with that. And focus settings, I'm going to set this to manual, and then you can see that my character starts being blurry here a little bit. I can go and use this little eyedropper and pick the part of the scene that I like to have in focus. If I select the character now, it'll just go and try to do this, but since it's all one mesh geometry, it actually shows me this as the thing that's supposed to be the focus. That's really not what I want. So there's 2 things that can help us here. One is under show, this is under visualize. I'll go make this a bit bigger here. So it's under show and visualize, and then there is the depth of field layers. And if you enable that, then you can see different representation of the whole scene. Blue means it's out of focus in the background. Black or gray means that's the focal plane that's in focus. And green is the stuff that's out of focus in front of her. So if I go and pick my main camera again, and then play with this focal distance value here manually, then I can see how the colors change. So this would be now changing the focal length, and this is also now going to say which part of my image is going to be in focus and which one is not. And so that's one way to visualize this, and it's kind of handy to say, well, this looks like the character is now kind of in focus, but I don't see it quite exactly. So if I go and switch this off again, under visualize, there we go, I can see that, well, even though I've made a good judgment call of trying to get this adjusted, it still isn't in focus, which is a shame. So thankfully we have another visualization method there if this manual value isn't good enough. So this, you'd think, well, maybe this is in focus, perhaps, I don't really know. until we render. There's another way to do this, and that's down here. That's the draw debug focus plane. And that's kind of nice. If I enable that, then I see this pink thing that comes into vision, and if I now move my focal length slider, I can see that exactly where that plane will park itself. That is where the focal length value is, and I can be very granular with this. Shame there's no option like in Blender where you hold down Shift and then your left click and drag is going to be, you know, much more subtle. Sadly, that's not how it works here. So I'll go try numeric values here. It's kind of here, but it's also maybe needs to be between 410 and 420. So I'll try 415 just so that I get her eyes here, because that's the thing I'd like to be in focus. I don't want the bow in focus. I want her eyes in focus. Or maybe 418. No, maybe 412. Is it maybe 414? I think that's not correct. 414. There we go. Something like that. Maybe. We'll see if that works out. When we're ready, we can just disable the debug focal plane again, and then hopefully this is what it looks like. So I'm kind of okay with it in regards to focus. I'm going to leave that as it is and keep my camera just in this window here so that we can keep an eye on it. And then I'll go and work with this viewport to adjust the light so we get some separation now. So the soft front light I'm kind of happy with. I'm also kind of happy with this, but I think what we're missing is a light from the other side. I'm not. Oh, dude, what happened now? Don't do that. There. Yes, I'm thinking we need another light like this from the other side here. And remember, we're still blending in a little bit of the HDRI in there. I think also maybe the front light is a little bit too strong. Let's deal with the second backlight first. Then we'll bring that. Yeah, that's what this light brings to the party here. Is that what I want though? So I'll make those shadows a little bit softer, but I think if I just look at the top of her head and how that separates, I think I'm kind of good with that. Let's do that. So harsh shadows here, let's go and remove those just by adjusting the source radius of that spotlight to something like that to make it flatter. See the shadows on her arm there, how they blur. That's nice. I think intensity is probably okay. The second light here, the rectangle light, let's bring that down in intensity. It's currently 8 candles. Yeah, so I'd like something kind of moody, so maybe 4 is a good starting point. I think also we could do with a little bit of a color temperature change from this light, so that we say something like perhaps more like a warmer skin tone. That's also possible. Under here, under light color, there's a way that we can enable temperature down here. Somewhere use temperature, and then instead of the default 6500, we can do something like 4500. Oops. 4500. And then this light here, the rectangle light, is going to be a little bit more orange, and that's more, you know, that's a little bit less blue. So this is the regular one, and this is the slightly more orange tone. So I think that's kind of nice. One thing I've noticed here in the camera is that when I change something, the camera seems to auto adjust its brightness, and that's because I've forgotten something on the main camera that I've set up on the post-process volume but not on the camera, and I have to do that here as well, and it has to do with the exposure. Do you remember on the post-process volume where I set my light to complete manual control? Well, the camera still hasn't got that in there, so the camera is still doing its own adjustment thing. So let me go and make that the same setting so that the camera looks like the viewport, which the viewport looks currently darker than the camera. So on my post-process volume, I've kind of forgotten already what the settings were, but that I set metering mode to manual and exposure compensation to 10. And let me do that on the main camera now as well. So that is slightly further down here. So somewhere under exposure, maybe, no, that's the lens. That's not it. Color grading, no. It was somewhere up here, wasn't it? Was it color grading? I don't remember where that was. Was it lens? No, that wasn't. Yeah, exposure. That's it. Yes, that's it. Under lens, under exposure, we go and say metering mode. Same thing. that we did before, so it's kind of blowing out now a bit. We're going to put this to manual, and then the exposure compensation now also goes to black. I will put that to 10, and now it's the same value as my post-process volume had. Something to keep in mind there, that we need to do that. Okay, one more light from the other side, and then I think we're ready for a bit of a render. So I might go and copy this camera now here. When you copy something, when you copy an object, it doesn't do hierarchies. I haven't figured out a way to do that yet, but if you go and say duplicate that object, you can see that the light camera has been duplicated in the same spot, but it hasn't copied the spotlight. So I need to do that as well. So go edit and duplicate the spotlight, and then that spotlight I'll just go and put underneath the camera 3. The cool thing about the camera, well, the light cam 3, is that it still knows the fact that it's pointing at my actor, which is great. So I can go and hopefully that's the plan at least. I can go and move this over here now, and that light is already pointing at my actor, which is really cool. And you can see the changes it makes there, and I can see where I want my separation to begin and to end. So I'm looking at this part of the hair here now, and this part of the body, so that stands out from the background. We've also copied, whoops, we've also copied all the properties with it that we had before. So this is what it would look like from slightly from the top here. Whatever floats our boat, really. Like the softness of the shadows, that's what's already copied there. I can't decide if something slightly further up or further down. Further up would give this part of the body a bit more separation. I can also, if I press G, then we don't see the overlays here. I think it all works for me. I'm just, trying to make a sensible decision here. Right. I do like that you have, so sometimes what I like for level building is that when you're on something like the floor here, for example, and you just go on Alt, left click and drag, it just goes and copies the whole object, which is neat if you're going to make a lot of copies of something. But of course, if you're adjusting a camera like that and you're accidentally left clicking and dragging, you have like more sources than you want in your scene. Like, if I do this on the character, left click and drag, whoops, sorry, left click and drag or alt click and drag on the character, I get multiple characters here, which is disconcerting, and it happens by accident so quickly sometimes. Has my focus now been screwed up? I think it has. Let me just go back to where it was better. I see I've undone too much now. So Control Y to bring this back to. So just before I did the floor demonstration. Yeah, well, that's just gone wrong here, hasn't it? Let's do focus again then. Dang, brother, that's cold. Main camera. Main camera focal plane. Completely off. How? I've taken such good care. There. Focus brought back. Dang, brother. Okay. Righty, so are we happy that this light adjusts now? I think it's okay now with the light on the side here. I think let's try to get a picture out of Unreal Engine and see how we can, because we're not quite done yet with the whole thing. I've just adjusted the focus now that I realize when it comes to rendering this picture out, it's not actually it'll be render time 3050 and 3070. The 3070 is going to be a little faster, I'm thinking, than the 3050, but they're both excellent cards, so I don't know about RAM. I've not looked that closely into the 3050. RAM might be another consideration. Yeah, so you notice a big difference. Absolutely, yeah. I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you got it despite the chip shortage. So on the Twitch session, we had great issues when we want to actually go and capture this character, because the big problem that we have is that when we hit play, you'd imagine something should happen, and it doesn't actually do that. That's crazy. If we got an animation set up here, idle. So play, and we go simulate, and that's the current viewport. There we go. So when we go and play this, we see that the character is actually moving. I mean, it's not much, but it could be dramatic potentially. She's just kind of, you know, standing there, but she's certainly moving, and that'll affect how well our depth of field works on a particular frame. And I didn't know a way until, you know, fairly recently to synchronize this with the sequencer. So we're going to come to that in a minute. So first of all, we're going to go and make sure that we can park our camera at a certain position in the animation and then render that one single frame out. And that works by adding a level sequence to the whole mix. That'll give us a name, so I'll call this here Sparrow 1 maybe, and that'll now create this object in our scene which is called a level sequence. And I think by default it goes and puts it into some kind of folder here. Oh, there it is. This is it. This is cinematic here. So this now gives us this sequencer, and if I wanted to make sure my camera can render something out, I need to go and select the main cam, and then head over here to track on the bottom, actor to sequence, and then say add main cam. And that now puts my camera into this timeline thing at the bottom, at which, if I wanted to, I can go and key frame lots of things like transformation of values. I wanted to move my camera and all that. Thankfully, I don't need to do that. My camera needs to remain in a steady position. But of course, now that if I move my camera, it doesn't move, but also the character doesn't move, except for some occasional crazy flickering there, which I can't really explain. And that is because this actually needs to go one frame forward. There we go. That actually happens because we need to record the animation of our character so that it can synchronize itself with the timeline, which is an interesting concept. I didn't actually know that's how that would happen, but the way to do this is apparently you pick your player character, like here, this lady here, and we also add her to the timeline. Sparrow player character, there she is. Now she has a separate track, and with this record button down here, I can now go and record her animation that would only usually be visible if I hit the play button. So this stuff we're going to be able to record and then pick the perfect frame at which we can then set the focus and then render that out. That's kind of, you know, that's the plan. So our animation isn't long, it's only like 150 frames long. With my player character selected, we go and click this little record button here and watch what happens. It's kind of cool when you do that. It goes, are you sure you want to record? Yes, let's do this. It goes, and usually I get something like what's it called? That of course didn't work. Usually I get something like a clock here, and it hasn't worked. It totally hasn't worked. So that was a waste of time. Let's go and delete that because that totally wasn't correct. Maybe with her selected in here, do I need to go and record that? Let's try that. Nope, that also doesn't work, interestingly. So this is none of that is what's working. Is it actors? Do I need to, what was it again that I need to click here? Maybe she isn't actually supposed to be in the timeline yet. That's also possible. How do I do that again? Go click that character and then go record. Is this how we do that? Because then usually what should happen is I should get... No, see, it's not doing it. Dang. What am I doing wrong? That is not what's supposed to happen. So what's supposed to happen is that we see a little like a countdown clock, and then the character moving, and then it actually recording it. So it looks like this isn't doing that. Let's see if I go and put her to custom mode and then move her here. No, see, she's recorded something, but she hasn't recorded her her animation. which is a little sad. Let me go and bring this back to like the, where was that again? Layout, there it is. To the single viewport here. Okay, that's a little sad because I had assumed that's how that would work. Custom mode, we're going to go back to animation asset. If we hit play, then we see this. So this is what we want to record. I don't exactly know why that didn't work. Let me go try this again. So I thought we're going to go add her to here. Park the playhead where it needs to be and go and record our lady. Isn't that how it's supposed to work? It looks like it's not working today. What a shame, because it did work yesterday. Yes, render, absolutely. I'm trying to set that up. So we have to, I guess it'll work this way since we only deal with the static pose, but sadly I can't show you. What's supposed to happen is now that the recorded version should now basically be movable, and I should be able to pick a frame here. I don't know what I'm doing wrong that's not working, but that's usually how it works, but that's how it's supposed to work. And then we can pick frame wherever her movement is. Let's say it's frame 47. We fix up the depth of field, we fix up the exact focal plane, and then we go render it out. But for some reason that animation isn't coming in here. It's probably the wrong button I've pressed, or the wrong order in which I did it. Let me go and try this one more time. Should I try just actors? Is that something? I'll just go click on actors here. I'll delete that. Transforms and also transforms. All of that is disabled just on actors. Will this work? Nope, she's still not doing it. There's a very distinct kind of graphic that you can see, and you can also see the character moving here. Oh, is it actually as simple as, don't give up hope yet. Don't give up hope. Is it that we just have to actually put her into simulation mode like this? So now she's actually moving. Is that what we need to do? We go to Sparrow character and go do that. Yes. See, this is what I was expecting. So I need to actually simulate the character. That's what needed to happen. Hey, Mr. Jeremy, how's it going? And now we have that in the can. So now I can stop simulating. Man, this is so complicated. And now when I move this, I can go and see the whole animation, but it's now synchronized with the camera. So, gotcha. So you gotta go and play this. You gotta switch this over to simulate, then play the character's animation back, and then record while he or she's doing it. Oh, ha ha ha. Oh, Popeye, that is so nice of you to say. Learn with Jay, I love it. That's a good hashtag. Bang your head against the wall with Jay, I love it. Jeremy, how's that secret government project going? And do you have time, let me just ask you this, don't answer now, but you know, think about it. Do you have time for a side gig? Answers on a postcard. Think about it. So with this done, we can now pick a good frame of the animation. Let me go and look through my main camera first of all, and then play back the animation here and see when we have a perfect frame. So in our animation, doesn't actually make that big of a difference. But if we had something in which she makes massive movements, which there are animations that do this, maybe we'll do this at the end if we have time, then you can pick your perfect frame. And let's say my perfect frame is frame 15. Let's say this is the perfect one. Like in Phase, we had the idle movement where she had eye blinks, and she also had, I think she has eye blinks, doesn't she? No, she doesn't blink. Jesus. But yeah, Phase had eye blinks, and Phase also had mouth movements and stuff. You can pick the perfect pose here. Let's say our perfect pose is on frame 15. Just say, yeah, this is the perfect pose. Then we can go one final time and check if our focus is correct at that point. I have a feeling it probably is. So on our main cam, where are you? Main cam, there it is. Focal plane, yes, it's perfect. Okay, that's all I wanted to check. So now we can go to this non-one-click solution of rendering this frame out. So let's remember frame 15. Got to remember frame 15. So this icon here is the key to happiness, and this here is the render movie options. This here at the bottom, movie scene capture, that's the thing that works by default. But since we've installed this other thing, the movie render queue, we can use that. So pick whichever one you like, then click this button here, render this movie to video or image frame sequence. That's what we'll do. We'll click that, and then it gets transported into this tab here, the movie render queue, and that can now be rendered with this button here on the bottom right. It can also be rendered remotely, but yeah, we're going to use this. This here where it says unsaved config, that's where we can set our exciting settings for what we want. Let's render as a JPEG. Deferred rendering is fine. Output is the output directory and also the frame size here. So in my case, I'd like for this to be high res as possible. So we're going to go with 3000 by 3000 perhaps. And a custom frame rate we don't need, but we want to probably have a custom playback range because we don't want to render the whole animation now. We want to render just one frame. And we said, what was the perfect frame here again? Was it frame 15? 15, yes, perfect. So frame 15, so custom start frame is 15, custom end frame, check it out, is 16. So that renders one frame, namely frame 15. And that's kind of how that works, I think. Then, just so that we remember this can come back next time, we should also save our render settings. We'll come to that in a minute, but just hit accept, then hit render, and then this one frame will get rendered, hopefully. There she is. Let's open that up. And that is indeed that frame. Now with the character not moving, now with the depth of field in the correct place. Albeit not with a transparent background yet, but we'll address all that. It's almost like the depth of field is still not exactly where it should be, so I can still see the face is being blurred out a little bit. It is good, but it's kind of, I think it's too far in front of her. So maybe we're going to take it back because I want it to be exactly on the eyes. There's something you could probably also do with the tracking point. We also have her slightly slanted, so that means, you know, it might, some other depth of field might be creeping in there, but it's a high-res render. And there's other things that we need to do. So there's like splodges on the hair. That's something that multiple render passes can alleviate. There's a tiny bit of motion blur that's crept in here. That is also unavoidable, if I understand it correctly. Unless we set a custom frame rate to 60 and then render out in that. So that should only give us a single frame, so we can try that out. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. It's low res as well. These are not high res characters, so the materials are very high res, but the actual geometry isn't actually very high res. I had a picture. I don't know if you were here when I showed this in the beginning. I had a character that I did some test renders with. Aurora, that was her. These are some test renders I've made with this technique, and so. You can see that some of the textures, they're a little bit fake because there's really not a lot of geometry in here. This is all done with the textures. But one of the things that immediately springs to mind is that if you zoom in to the hello, dude, what? No, not this photo. No, dude, seriously, what? No, seriously not. There. What I wanted to do is zoom in here and then show you like the geometry of the shoulder. And look at that. It's not so noticeable in things like the face or the armor, but yeah, that's polygons for you here. So yes, they're meant for real-time games rather than high-res renders. Console commands. Oh wow. Do those actually look much better if you put them through Corel Painter and turn it into a bit of an artwork instead? You know, you can always use them and export them as an OBJ and then go and try and use that and make your own custom character around it in Dash Studio. Certainly use it as inspiration, why not? Oops. Totally not what I meant to do. Okay, let me see if I can do a little bit more with the depth of field here. So we decided it was a little bit too far at the front, right? So we need to go and put it back somewhat. Is it 490? That's probably too much. So let's go try. I'll put it 5 back. So under 480 it was before. Let me try 485. Let's just to see what that's gonna bring to the party. And let me also introduce you to another feature that we haven't talked about, which is, oh, actually, yeah, high-res rendering. If you don't want to go through this render queue, there is a way to just render whatever's in your viewport. So if you press G here, then all these markings will be gone. There's a cheaper way to render it out, and that is, I think, under this option here. You can go and create a high-resolution screenshot. So you can do that as well. You don't necessarily need to go through the render queue, but the render queue gives you other options that we'll look at in a second, just so that you know a second way of rendering high-resolution screenshot. And then you set this to something larger, like 4, and then take a screenshot. This is going to take a while, and it's essentially looking at this resolution here, and just making that larger, and eventually, has it already done it? Take a screenshot, come on. It should, there we go. It comes up with this message at the bottom. This is where it saves it. We can have a look at that. Oh yeah, I've made 2 accidentally, and they look pretty much exactly the same as the render queue output. And I think our focus is better now. I think it still could go slightly further back so that the eyes are more in focus. So we'll do that. But we still have this problem with the hair. So you see these little splodges here. That's because it only does 1 render pass. So to make that better, we can add multiple render passes here. And that is only possible with the render queue rather than the high-res screenshot. So let's go and do this in here. There's another thing that we can add here at the top, and that is, and I was zoomed in all the time, wasn't I? Oh man, what a shame. What a shame, man. I was zoomed in all the time. That is just so terrible. I'm sorry about this. So I'm here now, I'm back on the render queue here, just so that we're all on the same page. The render queue up here, and so yeah, let me just actually show you this again. I'm so sorry that you couldn't see that. So I went up here. I went up here to high resolution screenshot. Man, I'm so sorry about this. So yes, high resolution screenshot, that is how you can do that. Crank it up to something like this, and then take that screenshot. And then this is where it is, and that's what this looks like. And it's higher res for sure, but we still see the splodges on the hair, and you know, it's a single pass render essentially. So let's see how we can improve this with the render queue. I'm so sorry about this. Sometimes I'm zoomed in and I forget. So on here, on config, we can go and add a thing here, which is anti-aliasing. And that's another tab that appears here. And with it, we can go and let this thing override the anti-aliasing. So instead of 1 pass, we can say make 16 passes, for example, and also use a particular method to do this. So I'm just gonna go with none and 16. There's one thing that I'm kind of interested in our output here. What happens if we do use a custom frame rate? And we do make it 60, does that make a difference? I could just, we could just try. See if that does away with the motion blurring, just as a matter of interest. So let me go and render this again. Now you see the render is going to take a little bit longer because it does all these subsamples here. And as a result, it goes and puts all these subsamples on top of one another. And with this high resolution, I suppose it goes and, takes a little bit of time. And now, do we see anything better? No, that's still the same, isn't it? Oh yeah, because I'm on a different frame now, aren't I? Sorry. Let's go and delete those. It overwrites things. I'm not entirely sure about the custom frame rate here. I might just go leave it like this. 15 to 16. If I go 15 to 15, does that do something better? Just to see if it actually does something. No, see, it didn't do anything. So I have to specify 2 frames here. So custom frame rate, it's experimental for me. So this is the thing I was trying to show you. So it's now going to do all these subsamples, and we'll see if it looks any better. So I can see some motion blurring going on here. I'd love to be able to avoid that. Currently, I can't. So So yeah, we see more motion blur, but we still see jagged edges here. Focus seems to be okay, but the quality is meant to be a little bit better. But I can still see, you know, motion blur. And that's now because multiple render passes have been made and it's been, like, you know, put on top of one another. So I don't know. There is a problem with this, and that is that multiple passes won't produce transparency. That's one thing. It's currently in beta. I have a feeling it'll hopefully get better over time. Let me go and try this this custom frame rate one more time, just because I'm kind of curious about this. So if I go custom frame rate, override existing method, and it is what is this? Override existing output. Oh, I see. If true output containers should attempt to overwrite any existing files with the same name. This is the auto oversave that I didn't really like. It looks like we finally found that. Let me try this. So with 60 frames, let me just try this one more time. And then we'll worry about depth of field and go back to single pass rendering, because that's the only one that does produce depth of field, transparency. And then hopefully we can put this into Photoshop and do something funky with it. And now I have 30 and 31. It's not the frames I had specified. There we go. This doesn't have motion blur. I like that. No motion blur. I wonder what would happen if we crank up the samples a lot more, so that we don't see the hair problems here anymore. Because the rest of the character looks good, but like I agree, the hair looks a little bit... Ugh. What were to happen, and just out of total curiosity, if we go and use something like much more? What happens if we use 64 as subsamples? Let's do that. Just to see if that does anything better. Can you imagine? Then eventually we get to this point where, hey, Unreal Engine can now do as good results as Iray can. Sure it can, but it's then no longer real time now, is it? Ken doll, Nancy, that's a good idea. See if we can make that happen. I think the votes were all against the man, or the two men that were in the selection. Okay, we want to see something like amazing now. How do we know which one's which? How do we know which one's the old one, which one's the new one? _2, this could be it. Is this it? I can't tell. This is the one with the hair issues, clearly. I don't know if that was the first version or not. And then this here, that could be the one. Does it look any better? It doesn't, does it? This is the one with 64 samples now. The hair hasn't exactly improved, has it? What a shame. So yes, let's just, while we're here, let's go and compare it to the one without. Let's do that, because, so let's switch this to off and we put this to 1. And then also let me not use JPEG, let me go and add Png Sequence. So this is now the one that should have, that while I would render with transparency had I set up my scene properly, which currently I haven't. So let's go and see what happens now. This is now with 1. Oh, it has done transparency already. Most of this is transparent. This we need to disable still. Yeah, so this is back to one sample. So I can certainly see that multiple samples improve something, but you know, not where it matters as such. I'm thinking. That's single sample again. This is multiple 64 samples. Doesn't really look all that different, does it? But hey, we have transparency. So, you know, let's rejoice at that. And let's see now how we can get rid of this floor here. So thankfully there wasn't anything else in the background. Had we had that, had we had something like buildings and all that, we need to give them the same treatment. But yeah, let's see what this here is the floor, as it says here. There's one property when you have this enabled, this transparent mode that I've set up in the very beginning of it. Let me go and search for this at the top here, which is called actor hidden in game. Sorry, it's actually the wrong search field. So you gotta search in this search field here. So it's hidden. There it is, hidden, actor hidden in game. If I enable that, then we can see that the floor disappears, and it's also now gone in the render. It's not, I don't think it's gone in the viewport. If I go and bring this back here to perspective view, no, it's also gone here. Actor hidden in game. Why is that? Oh, because we're actually looking at the animation. So yeah, this is how to get rid of that. But it'll only make it transparent if, just as a recap, just in case you've joined us later, I've done this in the very beginning. Under project settings, you have to go and say, you have to search for alpha and then enable this here. Enable alpha channel support and post-processing. This is set to disabled by default. And you have to go and set this at the beginning of your project before you import any assets. Ideally, you have to set this to allow through tone mapper. Just thought I'd let you know one more time. So now I think if we go and render this again, then we don't see floor anymore, which is kind of awesome. Moving to Europe, tales only few of us can tell. That is really cool. I'm proud of you. I didn't see this in the chat earlier. Which country did you move to now? And also, I don't actually remember. Which one was which here? So let's go and put them all in here, because I can't remember. I don't understand this versioning thing here. Okay. So you've retained your residence in the US for now. Good move. When we moved, it was kind of crazy. We didn't have time and we didn't have money to go back and forth multiple times. We also didn't have a job, which was kind of very crazy. But we had a good, a little bit of a buffer of cash, and we literally did it as a one-way trip. We packed 6 large suitcases in 2012, end of 2012, and sold one property, had the other one on the market, and we went in a cab to the airport in the morning, and this literally had a one-way flight that was, check it out, courtesy of American Express, first class on British Airways. It was very cool. It's the first time I flew first class, long distance, very exciting stuff. And they give you like plates and like grilled beef and all that, champagne when you board the plane. I was thinking, really? It was supposed to be $8,000 per person for the ticket, but because we had whatever American Express flight points, we got this for free, we got the upgrade for free. So I think we paid like $300-400 or whatever the flight would be, one-way flight. And then just because we were first class, we could bring 6 suitcases on the plane, which was great. And that's basically all our belongings, and then just made that one-way trip over to the US and haven't looked back. So there we go. Nate, that's a great thing to look forward to. At least one home in at least 2 countries each. I like it. Crazy stuff. Let's swap stories about how we've moved countries. I like it. I'm gonna go and render her out a couple more times with the same, hopefully with the same camera perspective, but with a different outfit. Let's look at that. That's under the skeletal mesh down here. So this is going to take a little bit of time. So this is the regular one. We also have Autumn Fire. The moment I switch that over, the shaders need to be recompiled, but we can go and let Unreal Engine do its thing and maybe see if we can come up with something funky in Photoshop that makes us look like a portrait. Oh, Autumn Fire now needs to be recorded as a separate animation maybe. Now she's standing there back in the A pose. Let the shaders get compiled. We'll see what happens. Ooh, how exciting! Well, Nate owns a lot of real estate in the metaverse, so you know that's, and over 1,000 NFTs. So you know, very good, very good. I do not yet, anyway. Okay, let's see if we can go and open. Where was that again? Yeah, there it is. I'm going to open that in Photoshop because I don't know where that folder is here. Open with. Didn't we have an option like that? Open with. There it is. Open with. Yes. Photoshop. Yes. Can't you just, you know, build one, Nate? Isn't that how this works these days? You just build stuff like that? Well, it's certainly transparent. There's certainly depth of field in there. And if we forgive the hair, maybe we can just go down sample this on final output. Let's do that. Let me go and put a color behind it that will... Hello, Photoshop. There we go. Thank you. Thank you for coming back. Let's see if we can find a color that kind of complements her hair. Maybe something like autumnal or whatnot. Or we go completely against it and go for something like you know, like a brightish kind of, yeah, I can't tell. I think this is so bright in her face. I'm thinking maybe something more like dark. I don't know. She's not really speaking to me here, bow lady. I gotta be brutally honest. She's not really speaking to me all that much. Yeah, so I can't get a handle of it. I don't see it, you know, I don't see the vision. Yeah, maybe even do a little bit with negative space here. Focus more on her than the arrow, or than the bow rather. We'll get to something eventually. Now that Unreal Engine is done here, I'm wondering, do we need to... Oh, there we go. We just need to repark the head here. That's cool. So this here is another outfit. It looks very similar to the previous one, but I'd like to just see, you know, the multiple outfits here that we can have. That's the first one. That was this. It's the same, isn't it? Same Autumn Fire and Feline Queen. Feline Queen needs to be compiled. Let me go and edit that. Come on, edit blueprint. Come on, dude. Unreal Engine is angry with me. It doesn't want to work anymore. Edit blueprint. Come on. Yes, edit. Open blueprint editor. Yes, that's what I meant when I clicked on it. I think maybe it's easier to see in the viewport the different outfits here. So this is one. That's Sparrow, and then we had Sparrow Autumn Fire, which looks exactly the same. Then what else do we have? We've got the Feline Queen. Let's go through outfits. Hey, Mr. Sam, how's it going? Compiling shaders. Let's have a look at it. Norway, yes, I'd like to explore Norway. A friend of mine whom I met in the UK, she's from Norway, and she had a husband, 3 kids. We were working both in television at the time, and she's fairly recently moved back to Norway, so that was an interesting one. She moved from Norway to the UK, spent like 10-15 years there, and then moved with her husband and the kids, moved back to Norway, back to the old country. It's kind of cool. Hello, I can't pronounce your name, I'm afraid. My Arabic is not good, but welcome to the stream all the same. Yes, Sam, it has been a while. Good to see you. So this looks almost the same as all the other outfits. Here, Feline Queen, I don't see that big a difference. How about Monarch? Let's go through all the outfits. I'd like to see if there's any difference here. Because according to the sales page, righty, I think, Lieutenant Belika Sparrow, there she is. Apparently those should all be very different outfits here. So far I haven't quite found them yet. Right, that's all her. And we have so far only found this one, so there should be so much variety in there. Yeah, but there isn't. Oh, is it? Oh, I see. Is it because of this here? Here's go none. And also animation. I think there's something wrong with Unreal Engine. It just doesn't update the materials here. So if I just use none of, yeah, look, this preview here looks actually different than what we see here. So I don't know why it doesn't really do that. There we go. Compile did the job. Compile did the trick. Okay, so then we'll go for this. That's one outfit. We don't have to compile every time. You can just go change the outfits usually. So that's then Autumn Fire. That's Autumn Fire. Now that looks much nicer. Autumn Fire. I think we can work with that. And what else? Feline Queen is, yeah, look at that. It's like the cat face and everything. I see, I see. Monarch, yes. Look at that. That's much better. Now we got it. What's Raven? Let's have a look at Raven. I don't use Unity, no. It's I tried it out and it doesn't speak to me, to be honest. Unity doesn't speak to me. Maybe one day. Yeah, I think Unreal Engine is a little angry with me. For highlighting some of its weaknesses. I shouldn't do that. Ooh, there we go. Still compiling. So ideally I like to make a portrait with all of these ladies, with all their outfits. But also maybe I'm not too keen on the pose just with the arrow, so we'll browse through some of the other animations and see if we can extract better bits and pieces out of it. Like, you know, better poses, better stances. Sparrow Raven. So then if I go over and I go back to here now, to my actual scene, even though I've recorded the animation with a different outfit. So much for real time, huh? There we go. Aha, okay, so it does actually then translate that to another outfit. I do like that. I do like that. Let's try out the Autumn Fire instead. As it goes and thinks about it for a second. Was this Autumn Fire, was it? I thought that was more like red. It's totally not red. It's also not quite caught all the materials here yet, so I think still working on it. Unreal Engine is totally grumpy with me. You compiling shaders, buddy? I can't really tell. I can't really tell. Autumn Fire, see, that's red. Should that now not appear in here like as a... There we go, perfect. Oh, there we go, it just needed a minute. It just needed a minute. Okay, let's render this out again then. On here, don't want to override the existing one, no. So let's go do this. Rai Furiua, I don't think I'm familiar with her. That's the spirit, Camilla. That is the spirit. How to turn such characters into mobile? Ah, that's beyond my expertise, I'm afraid. That's beyond my expertise. There she is. If I go and open her now in Photoshop. There. I think she might be more suitable for a portrait with a nice funky background here. Like so, let's try that. So then I'll just add a flat background color to her that we can go and adjust in a moment. Maybe just matching something, picking something up from her outfit. Maybe like that. That's nice. I think that's we're getting there. We just make the background a little more fancy. There's even something. Have I still got it on my desktop? I think so. It's just a burst I've made in Clip Studio Paint, so that might be nice just as something we can put in there in the background, something like that. If we just blur that out and blend that in. Try that, and then we go and add maybe let's do that, for example, and then we go and add a tiny bit of that's the other thing that's probably deserving here. If we go and put the vignette not so much on her but more on the background, we can go and do something like this. It's a favorite trick of mine. Inverse this and go and put blackness on here. It doesn't have to be precise. If we make it a smart object, if we go to the filter thing and then just go a bit of add like a Gaussian blur to this, like on the double here, like really like a lot, like, you know, more even. So yeah, like that. That might be neat. And then we just go and drop this down a bit, and then of course at the top here, to make it look really swishy, we go and add a bit of color correction here, and not so much the contrast, but probably a bit of like vibrance and saturation to make her stand out like so. As far as I can see on this monitor here. That also, I think we want to go and constrain that just to her, so that the background color isn't affected by, if I go mess with her saturation here, it only is happening on her rather than the background. We don't want to go overboard here. So I think, you know, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. I do actually like having a bit more saturation in the background here. How's that? How's that? Not so bad, huh? Not so bad, not so bad. And it all started out with a completely blank project in Unreal Engine. So not bad, I gotta say, I'm happy about this. I'm happy about the possibilities. I'm thinking, since it's already close to 12 o'clock, why don't we go and pick this up tomorrow and do some more with that and see if we can get some of the other outfits, explore some of the other animations, and maybe we can make some other portraits. So I think I'm very happy about this. I'm very pleased with this. And then also, of course, it's easy now, I think, to make a 16:9 version. If we wanted something that fills the screen, we can try just changing the canvas size here, 3000 by, I don't know, make it super cinematic. Let's make it 5000. No, that's the height. I didn't mean to do that. Canvas size like 5000. There we go. Width is that. And then we'll just go and adjust that vignette accordingly so that we have the same red on the sides here. Yeah, but that's how, you know, that's how that would work. I like what we've done here in under 2 hours from start to finish, which is kind of cool. Yeah, the face is a little white. Yeah, I totally agree. That's probably, so she has very pale makeup here, which is kind of why I'd like to explore some other options. Unreal Engine is a little angry with me here. I don't know why I can't really move the viewport anymore. So maybe it's also asking for a break and restart. Yeah, she has very pale makeup. There's a lot of strong light coming in from here, isn't there? If only it would work. That's not it. Is it? I can't tell. That's the only rectangle light I thought I had. See if we can adjust the exposure just a little bit. Man, navigation isn't great here. Yeah, because the arrow is also blown out. So you are certainly correct. We'll bring this down. Does it have an effect? Yeah, it's not much. It's the other light. It's the one from the back. Is it this one here? Come on, react. This is a real-time engine. Come on. I click something, it happens. Come on. That's how it works. No, that's not it. That was the other one. I don't actually know where that comes from. There's another possibility is the post-process volume. Yeah, it could be that it's literally the post-process volume that's doing that. But that means we have to probably go and adjust the intensity of the other lights. Yeah, it's the HDRI that's in there. So that gives them more definition. Don't think I want to make that darker still. Or we need to use a different HDRI, which I haven't figured out where that actually is, or how to change that entirely. Yeah, if we do this with 9 as well, if we go and why don't we do this? I think that's a neat idea. Let's go. Come on, camera, come on, in real time, come on. Crazy stuff. So camera needs to have the same thing, and then maybe 10. I don't know why Unreal Engine is struggling here so much. It shouldn't really be doing that. That's what we set on the. Whoops, no, that was incorrect here. Post-process volume was 9, so on the main camera, exposure, this is what I'm adjusting here, where was it again? I forgot now, it was under exposure. Come on, react already. Exposure, come on. That, so that should be, if I go and type 9 in here, then this is getting darker, and this also means now we can probably compensate on the other lights here. So like this one was hello, come on, react. That was that. Where's the rectangle light? That's this one here. That gives us that, so that's just this. Maybe we'll just try it like that, and then we'll see if we can. I'm seeing no definition here now, so I don't know where that was. There it is. Is this it? Come on, react. There we react. Perfect. Yeah, so we may have to go and change the position of that light a bit. I have a feeling he wants a break. He totally wants a break. Poor little guy. Yeah, I think he wants a break or restart. Let's go. I think we've done phenomenal amounts of work today. I think I'm not making a commercial game. Oh God, no, Jesus, no! I wouldn't do that, Pamela. Let's pick this up tomorrow and see if we can find other animations on this character, as on other poses, different outfits, and we'll pick it up from there. Tomorrow morning, same time, same place, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. More Unreal Engine magic, my friends. Thank you so much for dropping by. I'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.